got art, cognitive science. And so are you also like, I guess, kind of studying AI in a way, or?
Yeah. I'm dabbling in that right now. I've been trying to train a neural network to the first step has been recognizing different shapes in my drawing style. And then this summer, I applied to a grant. We'll see what they say, but I am going to be trying to use these convolutional neural networks, which are basically just like very, they're image recognition based AI, deep learning, and try to teach this program that knows virtually nothing about creating art, especially not in my style, and see at what point or what it's capable of. I think the desire to make art is one of the most human things about us. And it would be a big milestone in the computing world to have at least some sort of more seamless interaction between computation and art, and like that's being developed already. But you know um kind of my definition of art, and we can kind of break this down later. I want to hear what y'all think about this because I haven't actually read this out to anybody, but I just wrote this down the other day. But art is a manipulation of physical materials or the self whose sole purpose is to convey an otherwise non-existent cognitive reaction, whether it's like elicting a memory, inspiring beauty, expressing an emotion, pain, documentation of history, etc. The execution of a somewhat, powerful manipulation of material often requires a skill set that is developed through repetition and is best exemplified in like traditional forms of art like painting, music. Like there's a certain amount of things you need to learn before you can, execute that material manipulation. But as art becomes more contemporary, that sort of training period um, could become less important. But um, yeah, I think one of the things that has been interesting is how, with that interpretation of art as being a form of expressing higher cognitive function and observing it is as well. Um, it's a promising kind of wormhole to go down, at least for me as an artist and also interested in cognitive science. How this could be like replicated through computation. Um,
Dude, yeah, that's awesome.
so yeah,
I like that. That's an interesting def. Do you come up with that yourself, or?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's
Y'all
cool.
are the first ones to read it, so
Oh,
I
okay,
give
cool.
me all the give me all the critiques or challenge it or whatever. I want to
Mhm.
hear it.
So yeah, there was a part I think in the first section that you were saying that um about how the art, I guess, elicits emotions or feelings that I guess you otherwise wouldn't know are there. Is that correct, or I don't know if
Right, right.
okay, interesting. I'm just kind of like trying to think about how that applies to computers, and I think are you aiming for AI slash computing to be able to create art? Is that what the intention is?
There's two avenues, and maybe one will come before the other. My overall like goal would be, especially kind of from a more practical and personal perspective, it would be how can we use this technology to lower the amount of um, mechanical and like training required to let me just put this in examples. To learn how to paint like Velázquez, the oil painting master, you may take like 35 years
What?
to be able to get to that level, let's say,
Okay.
especially in this day and age where you probably have to be working on something else, like time wise
Mhm.
you'd be that's how long it would take to express something to that level. So how could this technology be used, like, in terms of, like, computers, like, in a way, they're sort of like time savers. Like, we are able to do more complex things because we have this technology, and in being able to do those things, we're saving more, time in a way. Um, so
Okay.
I'm interested in how a computer could seamlessly make artistic expression easier and more direct from the source, which would be the mind. Like, what if you could create art by just thinking? That there's no hurdle of the mechanical execution of making something. Like, you can imagine that something will look a certain way, and then that could be constructed through a computer program and edited, and as you think about it more, it could evolve, because that's kind of ties back to the point of, you know, it's a it's an otherwise non-existent, when I say non-existent, it's not existent in a material sense, but it is in a cognitive sense. Like, I'm really interested in dreams, for instance. When you're in a dream, you feel like you're going through this whole world and so many things are happening and everything feels so real, right? Like, you're consumed by it. It's almost like when you're watching a really good movie, you're suddenly living the life of the characters that you're seeing, and be inhabiting the world that has been created for you. So, you know, along with that, it's like, given that art is getting at cognitive reactions, we can broaden what art means to just be thoughts and these abstract concepts that are often really hard to communicate. Like, so, um, I
Dude,
don't know if that makes sense, but
that'd be insane, dude. Like, the way I'm kind of picturing it is, or like you were mentioning dreams, so like somebody somebody has the dream, but, oftentimes you kind of like forget it, right? Somebody,
yeah, yeah, yeah. What if you could watch your dreams like a Netflix series?
Like a virtual lucid dreaming.
whoa.
Exactly.
Wow, that would be crazy.
Yeah, let's sum it up in something more simple like that, virtual lucid dreaming. Because I guess the complex part, and where I'm confusing myself here, is that I've increasingly, as I study the human brain more, I'm seeing art less about, um, especially like the meaning of art is almost a different form of language. Like, we use words to say what we're thinking. But we also use art to express what we're feeling, which is maybe feeling is more of an abstract uh, thing. So, the more we can perfect that line of communication, I feel like there will be more peace in the world. People will feel like they're being understood better. There's more of a seamless, like, route and avenue for expression, and that's good. That's what I want to see more of in the world.
So you're making art basically more tangible to things like computers to understand.
That's the first step, yes.
That's the first step. What would be the next step in this process?
um I'm sure it will change, but the next step would be, once a computer can understand art, it can collaborate on art.
Oh,
We can already teach an artificial intelligence to, if, let's say, there's a program right now that is increasingly controversial because you can make fake data, but that it takes the tone of your voice. Like, let's say it could take this podcast, and from each of us, it could take a 15-second clip, and then it could recreate our voice and just speak in our voice, whatever the words that someone else could, like, type into it.
that's scary. I mean,
Like,
but that's
it it
also
it de it deconstructed how you make words, and then it's making it. So I guess what I'd be interested in is using that same mentality of deconstructing art and somewhat making it in the way that you would make it, but then trying to tie it into um, rather than giving it a very direct input, the input would be your thoughts. So that's maybe the third step, combining it with
oh,
neuroscience.
that's amazing. That is so fascinating. Oh my
Dude,
god, I'm
and okay,
inspired.
so yeah, that's. Oh, jeez. So like, okay, I feel like other applications that that kind of technology and concept could be applied to. Like, I feel like there's a lot of places in the world, a lot of people in the world that could definitely benefit from expressing thoughts or emotions or feelings, and they probably don't even
Mm.
have a clue as to like how that would manifest, or even if that's a possibility. And there's different people that maybe go through hard times in their life, um, or beautiful times, things like that. And I feel like that'd just be like a way to let that side of them out, and they wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise. So I feel like there's a lot of different applications down the line.
Yeah, I feel like you could, like, people who are genetically, or like people who are mute, who can't speak. The application for this would be amazing, because if you just think about something, they're able to express it in words. I mean, I don't know how the science behind that, but I mean, the basic theory is there, right?
Right, right. And I know that I speak in like these like, you know, long abstract rants. I want to give you guys a specific example of how using this technology can make like the world a better place or a more understanding place.
Awesome.
Because, we, like I said before, just to reiterate, is the goal of all this technological innovation to me is that we can understand each other better. Like, being a person with your own thoughts and living in your own world is hard enough. Like, the mental health situation is getting worse. That we still haven't been able to resolve a lot of problems that have been, plaguing society for a long time, whether it's discrimination, sexism, all that. So I think this may be a good, one of the some of the work that I really look up to and admire is the Stanford University like virtual human interaction lab. They basically used VR to teach empathy and did a series of experiments that I think were very powerful. I may not be exactly right here, but they did one on actually I just pulled it up. In 2018 they did one on becoming homeless and like the human experience, and they basically pre-recorded from the perspective of a person um in a 3D camera a, the day in a life of being someone who lives on the streets or who um you know gets looked at in a certain way, and then it puts people in that perspective for an extended amount of time, and showing what it's like to look through the eyes of someone who is struggling with homelessness. And then they tie it back, and the empathy is shown through either more donations to charity. I think the most powerful one was how to experience discrimination in virtual reality. There was this video experience that they created, that they put the viewers in the body of a like young black man, and then they went through the this whole day that people come up and say racial slurs or tell them to do something, or it's a whole like, I can't go through it because I haven't been in it, but it's like several hours of this. And they were shot, like they did study before, like a questionnaire, like how much do you empathize with, you know, social justice for these, acts of discrimination? Have you ever laughed at a racist joke? Like all these things before, and the scores were significantly higher than afterwards. And a year afterwards, they asked them, and it completely changed these people's lives after having lived in for one day in the body of someone who was black, suffering like these, you know, like racial slurs. It changed their perception completely. They empathize, and like that is empathy. I think is the kind of golden thing here, is that if we can all understand why we see the world the way we do, we're gonna at least be able to treat each other with more respect when we're different. Um, you know, Maybe I butchered that description of the study, but y'all should definitely check it out, because I think that virtual reality technology, being able to put someone in a situation that makes them feel like it's real, worked wonders. It solved, one of the, or at least treated one of the problems I think is, most disturbing in society. So
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Wait,
that's amazing.
do you remember what it was called, or is it just like this
It's
Stanford?
yeah,
called.
I'll send it to you guys.
Oh, cool,
Did you
cool.
see it?
I
It's
found it. Yeah, examining racism with virtual reality, virtual human interaction lab, Stanford University.
yeah,
Hmm.
that one.
It's really interesting. I was reading the description. Oh my god, this is crazy.
Go read it, read it, read it. I was going off memory. Wasn't reading it. Tell me, fill me in. What did I miss?
Here, with funding from the Brown Institute for Medium Innovation, we are using the medium of VR to examine racism. In a collection with Dr. Courtney Coburn from Columbia University, we created 1000 Cut Journey, an immersive reality experience that allows you to walk in the shoes of Michael Sterling, a black male, and encounter racism firsthand as a young child, an adolescent, and a young adult. Understanding the social realities of racism is crucial to promoting effective and collective social action. The project builds on Dr. Colburn's research and previous VHIL studies, in which we have examined how virtual reality can induce empathy for people different from oneself. I think you nailed it spot on. I mean, it's basically the same thing that you were saying.
Exactly. So like maybe I'm gonna read that paper again, but I think like that is a prime example of taking that technology, and let's not just like you know feed corporate America and just do more data and more like gimmicks or whatever. Like let's actually solve these problems that are directly affecting people's quality of life. Um,
Ooh.
I I
That's
think
awesome.
it's very promising there, but like my main motivation in getting into this stuff is like, look, I got my first computer last for my 20th birthday in December last year. Like I am not a tech person at all. I've just I mean I just had an iPad that I would draw and take notes on, and even submitted my Yale application from my iPad. Like I was so adamant against it, but I realized like this is just not something to be intimidated by. It's a tool. And the more you can understand, these technologies, the more you can solve the problems that you want to change in the world. It's we can't expect that other people are going to just solve the world's problems the way we want them to. You got to get in there and learn and get your hands dirty, and um that's part of the joy I've found, at least.
Wait, so you were against the idea of having a computer?
I mean, I feel like having a computer was especially at a young age, and I definitely don't think kids should, you know, be living on, you know, through the internet or like pre-constructed like, even like playing a video game. You are experiencing less imagination because the place and what you do in it is already chosen for you. But I think one of the beautiful things about childhood is that there's a lot less preconceived rules of how things are and how they should be. And kind of letting kids ride that wave of, you know,
Exploration.
who cares, of exploration. Like, I think the internet can be a huge source of inspiration, but it can be a huge brain drain too, because you can get caught up in what all these other people are making, or just get distracted,
Like
and you
start
just spend
comparing
less time
yourself,
in your.
and you just your self confidence maybe starts to go down and different things like that, right?
Yeah, 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 exactly, exactly. Like I think we should be treating, especially the amount of access that is through the internet, it should be treated like something that, you got to be ready for it, because it's a lot.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
What do you think about these kids? What they're like 10 years old now. They got like the newest iPhones and they're all up on social media, and I'm just like, what, bro? Like, how? I don't even remember when I got like. I think back then, just playing around. That's what was cool. Just run around.
Right, 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 right.
I don't know. It's a different world now, though.
Yeah. I mean, it depends. Like, it's what you do with it. Like, it's those things like everything in moderation, right? Like, one
True.
of my favorite apps on the iPad is like this stop motion app that you can like animate a stop motion uh by just drawing directly on the iPad, and then it like figures it out for you. So like that is an example of technology
Mhm.
making creativity more seamless. When I was a kid and I wanted to make a stop motion, I would spend a week in uh the and with my best friend Davin, and I would spend our whole spring break when we were 10 with a dry erase board, like 6 dry erase pens, and we'd set up the tripod, and then you'd have to take one picture and erase it, one picture and erase it. We made a video that was like a minute long, and it took us like 5 or 6 days. And like now you can do it directly on your iPad. Look, if kids are using that technology to do stuff like that, awesome. If they're doing that if they're trying to learn how it works, this is what a computer's made of, this is how you write a program, this whole thing, great. That sounds awesome. But if you're just being like, sucked up, especially with social media, like, you know,
Mm.
if it's making you question, you know, who you are or what you want to do or feel self-conscious of yourself in any way, it's just better. You're better off without it, I think.
That's so true. I completely agree with that. But I feel like it's a lot easier said than done. And once you like start getting into that habit of using it for emotional support, like social media or just playing games consistently because you haven't manifested your energy towards something else, it's hard to be aware of what you're doing and then realize like, hey, this is not what I want to do with my life. But
Right. And like,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, you go.
You were talking about creativity earlier, and there's this book that I've been reading. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow. I don't know if you've read it. It's like this.
I love that title.
Yeah, it's really good. It's all about like the mind, how we think, why we make certain decisions, and it's made
Mhm.
by this guy named Daniel Kahneman, and he's like this Israeli professor at Princeton, and he defines creativity as an associative memory that works exceptionally well. So like when you're playing video games for nonstop for like 8 hours, your associative memory is just like, oh, me shooting this guy in Fortnite, or I'm not trying to call it a specific game or anything, but like your associative memory is limited because you're just doing one thing, or you're just exploring the same avenue that you've done maybe 100 times already. So
Right.
I think that's where it comes in, like where you're depleting your creativity almost.
Right. And like I said, creativity and learning go hand in hand. If you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're not learning or creating.
Exactly.
Um, and yeah, I think I you can't expect everyone to have that like same priority or desire, but I think also, you know, given the rarity of people who have time or put in the energy to live a creative life as adults, it's hard to instill that in children. Like, um, how could you tell your kids to not be on their screen all day when you are, Um, so, that it's understandable. Like, we got to grind, like work is online now, but there's other sacrifices that I feel like we can make that, can at least alleviate that overwhelming domination of screen time. But who knows? Like, that's part of silly why, like, I think virtual reality is gonna hit once like the production cost goes down. Um, it's gonna be in every home. It's gonna be like having another form of a screen, but it's just gonna be like 3D. That's going to be interesting, but there's going to be more grave consequences to going too far into that, because it's not going to just be a screen that you're on. It's going to be a screen that you're in, and it could consume your world. So Something to keep in mind.
That's true. There's this company that Elon Musk is starting, or he's already started it, and it's called Neuro Link.
Yes,
And
Neuro Link.
oh,
What's
you've heard of it?
Yeah, dude. I mean,
bro? He's a
Elon Musk
cognitive
is a
science guy.
superhero.
He's up in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, I, I think. I mean, what's your take on it?
I mean, he's doing the same thing that he did with Tesla, like marketing wise. Like right now, he's making and creating products that are helping like blind and deaf people, so they can like he's creating. I don't know the exact science behind it, but like I think the premise was
We
he's
could.
just creating
Good, my
this,
bad.
he's creating like this technology that will help people see, and I think it's a contact lens that it's like a really small camera. It's kind of like Google glasses but in a contact lens, I think, simplified version of that. But I think it's good because he's aware of how dangerous AI can be. And I mean, I trust Elon to a certain extent. So the fact that he's the one making and developing this, but then again, just because he has this small company doesn't mean, there's other people in like China or Russia or elsewhere that are not developing the same software for more malicious use.
Right, right. I mean, that's exactly it. Like, if we want to like go back out into like bigger things, like there's some people that find comfort in controlling others, and this technology will be very efficient if it were to be used to control people.
Yeah.
Like, that's something to,
Really.
like, I mean, think about it like this. Like, you know, the reason TikTok is so damn addictive is because it's an algorithm that was, it's very, very cutting edge in that it can precisely give you something that you'll be interested in so that you stay on it and you keep staying on it and you keep coming back to it. Like, at a certain point, that is going on that app is allowing for something to tinker with your brain, with your dopamine levels, and most importantly, with your time. You know, everyone should have the right to spend their time as they please for the most part. But, the where the line gets blurred is when you create something that's addictive, because, addiction is a sort of rewiring of the brain that irrationally prioritizes or desires something that you don't necessarily need as much as you feel that you need. So in a way, it's kind of like mind control, except that it's perfectly legal because it's an app that you chose to download, that you chose to make an account, and you are choosing to go open on your phone screen or whatever.
But
So, that, sorry?
oh, so I was gonna say it's like, but like, do you think they like okay? So was it intentional by the companies when they like create these, addictive apps and or different programs? Do you think it was that was like kind of like their intention in creating it, or like
100%.
hmm,
100%.
interesting?
The business world is ruthless. It is money, money. What's going to get us more money that is somewhat legal. They were working on something that is going to bring in, I mean, TikTok is insane. It just shot up and consumed the world, and ads on TikTok are generating so much money. There's so, like, it's a business. And that's what we can't forget. They're not doing it for us. They're doing it to make money. TikTok isn't, it's not some venture to make the world a happier, like, better place. Like, there are people who are selling ads and, more valuable, data. That is the real moneymaker. That's what
Yeah.
Facebook and Google and all those people, like, we don't need to go too far into it, but that's something to keep in mind. Like, they are, the technology is the way that people are interacting with this algorithm, that it's working, that it's something that can be replicated, that can be sold. So, there aren't many rules because this is so new. There's not many rules on how addictive you can make your social media platform because, there's never been anything like it before.
Yeah. And I think in 2018, data surpassed oil as like the most valuable commodity sold. And and you're completely right because I don't have TikTok, but I know that all my friends say it's like super time consuming, and I don't know if it still does this, but like apparently you couldn't see like the clock when you were on TikTok, so you could just be on it for hours without even realizing like how much time flew by.
Bro, I mean okay, so just for like a statistical purpose, they say that like their monthly user count is estimated at like 500 800 million. And I mean like that's just that means there's an influx of eyes and attention towards TikTok. Um
That's user increase,
that
500 million per month more.
well no, it's okay, so 800 the 800 million is the monthly active users.
Okay.
Yeah. And so,
Wow.
Which is almost 1/8 of the world's population, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
twice the size of the US, or
mhm.
more, through almost three
the,
times.
the the funny
That
thing though is like they sometimes I don't know if they still do it, but I remember there was a time when after a certain number of swipes, I guess, on the videos and posts, it does come up with like, "Hey, TikTok's fun, but you should probably take a break. Go to sleep or like do something." Like they actually like had,
really?
yeah, they had that, yeah, and then like same people would be like commenting like, no, I'm good." Like what, like I'm just like, yeah,
Oh wow.
Dang,
So
that's crazy.
yeah,
so there may be little morals left in that business to a certain extent.
jeez. I don't know about you
I
guys.
mean,
I'm still tracking my like daily or weekly, yeah, like daily screen time, and I feel like especially now it's up right now. I'm kind of fall asleep.
Yeah.
But sorry, go ahead, Diego.
no, yeah, I mean, it definitely also hit at a perfect time because everyone's at home and bored. But I just wonder, like, people, some environmentalists, maybe myself in the past, if I don't remember, but we're wondering, like, what if all cars and planes stopped driving for like a month? What would happen?
Do
And
you think it's
now
before the quarantine?
no, yeah, sure. I mean,
Okay.
it's the fucking dream for people who care about the climate because air pollution just plummets. Like, you've seen all these pictures of clearer skies in India and China and LA or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but what would happen to the world if TikTok stopped for a day or a month, or social media like stopped for a day or a month? You know,
People would read.
Oh no, not
yeah,
the books, not the
people would.
books.
Maybe. I mean,
Who knows? Who knows, right? But like, people would also have some sort of like withdrawal. Like, people would like,
oh
maybe just try to go on YouTube or find some similar type of like fix. But there's one thing that people don't voluntarily like. Doing something voluntarily means that you want to. Like, there's like a desire to. If you're voluntarily spending that much time, there's some sort of little fix in your brain that like you're getting when you go on. So like, that's we've known that. We've known that's like the typical like mom soapbox spiel, like you're getting addicted to like social media or whatever. But like, the less things that are controlling you and your life, the more free you are to do whatever you want.
exactly.
Bro, and even now, like, obviously we could probably go into this is like a whole nother topic, but like about how much it does kind of constrain the so either social development of a lot of people, even like around the dinner table, a lot of times
Right.
it might not be as intimate with each other, and even finding a boyfriend or a girlfriend probably not sometimes people are just looking for something else, and different cultures arise, and like social cultures, and people are not as into learning about each other closely, and maybe start using each other anyways. But that's kind of like a another negative, I guess, of the uprise in technology and social media. But
Right, and that maybe you even start treating people differently in real life based on who they are in
Mhm.
on social media.
Yeah.
But
I,
it's a projection of it's a highlight reel of people of people's lives. That's pretty much
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and I think that's how like biases are made. Like if you see people behaving or doing something in a certain way online, like when you see that person's race or ethnicity or religion, in person you have this preconceived bias. It may be subliminal, like you may not even think about it, but just because you've seen that already, it's an associative memory that you've aligned with whatever you're experiencing with, and that augments this interaction that you're having. So I mean, like a perfect example could be like Islamophobia. Like there's plenty of propaganda out there saying that like all Muslims are terrorists or violent, and when you interact with a Muslim wearing a hijab, or I forget the name that the guys wear, but if you just see someone like that, you might have this preconceived notion that, oh, this guy is definitely like has a gun, or like something along those lines. And I think our society is doing a really good job of just pushing these notions, or the relationship thing as well.
Mhm.
Right, like with it, it has its like pros and cons, and that's why we look out at the at the individual, like you know social media has perhaps been a great way for people to connect with people that see the world in a similar way. Like on a personal level, that's great for everybody. But on a societal level, it's connecting people that are trying to, make the world a better place, but it's also perpetuating like hate and that propaganda that you're talking about. Right?
Mhm.
Like, even like let's not forget like this social media like was skewing our elections like the democratic like process in like this country, like it's shocking the amount of power and influence that something acquired so quickly. But it's not like some abstract thing, it's just a platform, but it's everyone that's contributing to it that is giving it all that power.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a crazy world we live in now. It really is.
And you know what the craziest part too is that we're young to the point that having, and I think it's so cool that you guys are doing a podcast because talking about these things now is important because we are going to be the ones that are riding out these changes. And, you know, perhaps depending on where or how we end up, we may be making some decisions that impact humanity for a long, long time, you know? Like we, especially now, as we kind of, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I feel like, you know, in a way, something's like coming. Like we've been like we're building up to something, and all this innovation, the world getting connected, and now with like the world seeming to be like being spread thin with this whole pandemic. You realize that it takes certain people stepping up and pushing to make the changes you want to see to you know that it could have a huge like rippling effect. That's why I think it's so important to I think it's dope that you guys are doing this. I don't, just because
Appreciate
you're gonna reflect on this. You're gonna reflect on this.
Yeah,
Like you know, I always say like when you're creating stuff, the main person you should be making stuff for is for you.
exactly.
Like no one. I assure you, no one's gonna listen to your podcast more closely than you will in 20 years.
it.
That's so facts. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
It's true, and dude, save this shit on a drive, email it to yourself, or like put it on a hard drive or something. But
Yeah,
the real value is like what you're gonna make of this. Like when you maybe are at a point in your life that you maybe lose some direction or are at a crossroads or hitting a milestone or something. Looking back to hear what you guys have to say or how you saw the world in 2020, that's gonna be the most incredible gift you can give yourself.
that's so
Yeah. I
true.
haven't thought about it like that, but yeah, that's awesome.
Wow. And is that what you do when you're creating art? Like, is it more of a reflective for you? Like, do you scrutinize it more than anybody? Like, do you think you scrutinize your own artwork more than anybody else?
I definitely feel like I see it in a different way. My problem is like I definitely, for better or for worse, have a lot of ADHD, especially when it comes to the things that I do. I like bouncing around because I gain momentum from different perspectives. So kind of inhabiting different worlds, whether it's, you know, spending 2 months working on a 3D printing project or building something in virtual reality or just drawing or making clothes or whatever. Like the the cool thing is to be able to go back and learn from the things you've done in the past to help you with what you're doing in the present, you know? I mean, I think there's this like a lot of artists sometimes fall into the pitfall of I want to be a legend. I want to be remembered forever. I want to be in these museums and like have my name be passed down like for generations. Yeah, that would be great, but you have no certainty of that happening. But you can assure yourself that you're going to remember who you have been in like in your past, because I guess it's just a variation of the same thing. Like our personalities change throughout our life. All the cells in our body regenerate and like cycle through. Like, you know, you can get to know yourself as an adult or as a young person and be basically meeting someone that's different than you, but just shares the same memories. I don't know if that is like, I don't know how y'all kind of interpret that, but it kind of makes me excited to get older because just means that my perspective is going to keep changing and I'm going to have more materials to work with and think with throughout life.
Yeah. I mean that changes something exciting. I've never thought about it from that perspective specifically, but I really like the way your brain works. You're very like outside of the box in the way that you think. But yeah, that introspective like realization of how you're always going to grow and how you can document that change maybe through your artwork. And I mean, you said how you're always change. That's yeah, that's a beautiful way of putting it. But do you think your work comments on any current, past, or social or political issues, or is it just something more free, something more ambiguous, something just more interpretive? It's like
Um, the current issue that I do feel very passionate and am driving to create a body of work centered around this is the situation with the climate, the environment, and the amount of thought we should put into considering how our next steps will be in terms of, you know, how we treat the severity of this issue. I think, um, especially the land art that I make, I've been trying to move to more sustainable platform in everything that I make. I want to be a person that by the time I'm done, and I hope everyone at some point acquires this mentality, by the time I leave here, I hope I have made more progress towards bettering the state of the climate in which I was born than damaging it, and just being alive, we're maybe already a little behind, but I feel like art is something that I'm already passionate about. And I care so much about this problem just because I think of, I want future generations to feel what it's like to go swim in the ocean and not have to worry about toxic water levels. Or I want everyone to at least, be able to run through a forest and just smell like like green trees and like fresh air. I don't want to take that away from anybody else because those are the things that have brought me the most joy in life. So in working with art, I know art gets a lot of attention and eyes, and sometimes the natural world does too, but not in the way that art does, because art is very like closely associated with life and expression. So a lot of the land art that I do is kind of personifying landscapes, right? How can I make, human beings empathize with faces and expressions? So, in creating faces in large, um, you know, landscapes, kind of at least brings attention to the fact that it's very much alive and its life is in our hands. So yeah, that's kind of, at least from what I'm commenting on in terms of change that I want to see politically, individually, it's that.
It's awesome, dude. I think that's gonna be awesome to, like, really cool to listen back to this in the future, and
Yeah.
see where you're at that point. That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and I
think
can't wait in like 10 years to see what your work will be like, cuz I'm sure, I mean, in like the 2 years that I've known of you, at least, your work has changed like drastically, and it's just amazing just watching that progression. So I can only imagine.
for sure. I think. Oh yeah. So I have a question about you. You mentioned that you almost feel like there's going to be some kind of big transition, and in the world, and I'm wondering if that kind of where you, I guess, see that manifesting. If you see that as, a long term, drawn out kind of change, is it like a sudden change? Because like personally, I'm like almost, it's hard for me to just kind of fathom another big change, following what we're dealing with right now. So yeah, just what are you thinking?
Change is, such a trigger word for so many people that I almost want to like redefine it right now before I keep moving forward with
Oh
it.
shoot.
But change, change to me is a progression in a direction other than the previous one. So like the way we see movement, right? So like imagine that your eyes are just like a pixel board, and when you're staring at, at Eel finishing his marathon, you see it that his body is changing its position in the space that is otherwise staying still. Like the road isn't moving, the finish line isn't moving. The thing that you focus on is the thing that's changing. So people react to that differently. Some people can cheer him on, some people can hope that he trips and falls, that he doesn't finish, but either way, Eel's moving and changing. So with that mentality, it's like, you know, when I think when change happens too abruptly, it surprises people, and a lot of people react negatively to it. But the change I think is most effective is change that you believe in, that is so deep rooted that people wouldn't question it otherwise. Like, I hope that it's not some, you know, I
Yeah, yeah,
I don't see I want to clarify that I don't see like some sort of like other pandemic happening and that the world ends and that everyone has to get their shit together or anything. It's more like a change in mindset. Like I want people to start believing in things that, and especially in being young, we lean towards a more ideal future because we're about to live it. We're gonna, hopefully, knock on wood, we're gonna be around for at least the next 60 years, and active during those years. So,
Yeah.
of course, it's important to believe in change because we want to live in that better world. We want to see it go in that direction. So, I think now that we're all connected through social media, changes are happening faster. And, depending on what people care about, that's going to get perpetuated throughout. And I think change is just going to become more of a norm. Maybe one of the things that I'm anticipating, that I don't know if it will come to this, but maybe it will, is um, as I was saying, as technology meets, advancements in, what Elon Musk is doing, for instance, Neuralink, like like very like literally combining technology with the human body, there will be the potential for this sort of cyborg to like develop. And this is from a,
Yeah.
this is, people are moving towards this. This isn't some sci-fi thing. I was never a sci-fi kid. I never really did the whole Star Wars, Star Trek, any of that. But
Mhm.
from a science perspective, it's increasingly possible that there will come a point that you can choose if you want to have, all the knowledge of the internet in your brain, or if you want to genetically manipulate your children to be taller or to be healthier or to have certain traits. All those things we have to, at least consider that they could be possible, because if they were, it's going to be a huge discussion and a huge dilemma if whether it's right or wrong, because obviously people who are the elite or at the top or most educated or whatever, or most affluent communities, are going to have access to that first. How does that marginalize minorities? How does that completely perpetuate or siphon off like the wage difference? Like, what if people are inherently just like are more capable of succeeding in the world than others because of like these opportunities that were modified through technology? Like, these things may be super outlandish. It may not be our generation that decides it, but it's stuff to think about because people are working on it. And if there's one thing that humanity has proven, that is, if there's a will, there's a way. Someone wants to be on the moon, it's going to happen. If someone wants to create solve like the cure for ecstasies, it's going to happen. So I think it's just important to um, come to terms with the fact that of course, things will change during our lifetime, probably more than any other generation, I think. So yeah, that's kind of what I mean. It's a very big like thought, but in short, change is coming. So read and watch YouTube videos and make podcasts, because that's how we're gonna get through it.
I like that.
Awesome.
That was deep. That was deep.
I think those are couldn't have been better. Finalizing words. That's awesome. Yeah. So, guys, real quick, there's this quote that I just wanted to throw out there that I heard recently. I really like, and I think it's pretty applicable to what we've been talking about. And Diego might have already heard this before, but it goes: "Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world." And you may be thinking that was quoted by an artist or a really creative person, but I mean that was actually quoted by Albert Einstein, notable notable scientific figure. I mean, that just goes to show you the importance of what goes on in the mind, the way we develop it. Yeah. But yeah, thank you for being on the podcast with us, staying on, sharing what's you've been thinking about recently, what your art has developed into as of now, different motivations. So yeah, guys, thank you for listening, and make sure you check out Diego on his Instagram, and
check out Scroll Design.
Yeah, support.
Dang, if someone listened to all 2 hours of this, just DM me right now and tell me, because I would be shocked.
We're gonna get like 100 DMs.